moral agency, purpose, and responsibilities. Corporate moral agency, purpose, and responsibilities are essential topics in business ethics as they relate to the obligations of corporations to act ethically and responsibly. The concept of corporate moral agency has become increasingly relevant in today's business world. As corporations continue to have a significant impact on society, it is essential to examine their purpose, responsibilities, and moral agency. This course will cover the rationale for the corporation and its moral agency, the different perspectives on the corporation's purpose and scope of responsibilities, and the basic framework for case analyses. Rationale for the corporation and its moral agency. The corporation is a typically private legal organization created to advance economic growth and meet societal demands. As a result, it is given various privileges and rights, including the capacity to own property, sign contracts, and run businesses. These rights do, however, come with obligations, such as the need to behave morally and in society's best interests. The ability of the corporation to make moral decisions and accept accountability for its actions is referred to as moral agency. Despite being composed of individuals, companies also have their own identity and decision-making procedures, which makes them accountable for their collective acts. This calls into question whether business entities should be held to the same moral standards as people. The corporation's purpose and scope of responsibilities. There are different perspectives on the purpose of the corporation, with some arguing that it exists solely to maximize profits for its shareholders, while others argue that it has broader responsibilities to society as a whole. These perspectives are often referred to as shareholder theory and stakeholder theory. According to shareholder theory, a corporation's main goal is to maximize profits for its shareholders. According to this theory, businesses' only obligation to society is to maximize profits for their shareholders. Shareholder theory proponents contend that since companies lack moral agency and shouldn't be held to the same moral standards as people, they shouldn't be. Stakeholder theory, on the other hand, holds that corporations have a broader responsibility to society beyond simply maximizing profits. This theory asserts that corporations have obligations to all stakeholders, including shareholders, employees, customers, suppliers, and the wider community. Supporters of stakeholder theory argue that corporations are moral agents and should be held to ethical standards. The idea of duty is central to corporate responsibilities, as employees have certain duties because they are part of a corporation. These duties are not just voluntary obligations, but obligations of solidarity, as employees are part of a collective entity and have a responsibility to act in the best interests of the corporation and its stakeholders. Contracts are essential components of business relationships. They provide a framework for both parties to understand their obligations and responsibilities. However, sometimes parties may contemplate breaking contracts for various reasons, including profitability or convenience. The idea that breaking contracts is an acceptable business practice is argued by some, as long as the contract breaker is willing to pay the damages caused by the breach, but is contradicted by the principle of perfect duty. This theory holds that normalizing contract breaking would create a world where contracts cannot be trusted, and businesses would not be able to rely on their agreements. The consequence of such a world would be disastrous for businesses and their stakeholders. It would lead to chaos, uncertainty, and a lack of trust between parties. By honoring their contracts, businesses signal to their stakeholders that they are reliable and trustworthy partners. This fosters a positive business environment that benefits all parties involved. On the other hand, the theory of consequentialism evaluates the morality of an action based solely on its outcomes. Theoretically, according to this theory, there should be nothing wrong with breaching a contract as long as you're willing to pay for the damages, this making the other part whole. For example, say you agree to rent your car out for a month for $500, but assume you now need your car for an important reason. If you refuse to rent your car out, the renter will have to rent another car for $700. The consequentialism theory would tell you to breach the agreement and pay the $200, and that there would be nothing wrong with this strategy. The perfect duty rule would say that this is still wrong. A proponent of the perfect duty would argue that because universalizing contract breaking is logically inconceivable, we have a perfect duty to abide by contracts. Consequentialism can lead to several negative consequences for businesses. It can damage their reputation, reduce customer loyalty, and ultimately impact their long-term profitability. A practical problem with consequentialism is that the incentive is so great to act in a self-serving way and do whatever it takes to make a sale. It's difficult to carry out this theory in an ethical way. The scope of responsibilities of corporations is also a continuous issue. Some scholars argue that corporations have a narrow responsibility to their stakeholders and should focus solely on maximizing profits. Others contend that corporations have a broader responsibility to society and should consider their impact on the environment, employees, and other stakeholders. Basic framework for case analyses. In the remainder of this course, we're going to analyze several cases of ethical dilemmas faced by corporations and how they reacted to them. The basic framework for case analyses involves several steps. The first step is to identify the stakeholders involved in the case, as well as their interests and concerns. The second step is to analyze the ethical issues involved in the case, including any conflicting interests or values. The third step is to evaluate the available options and determine which option is the most ethical and responsible. The fourth and final step is to take action and implement the chosen option.